Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro. 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah, what's up, Vegas? It is Thursday. Man, I can't believe we're into March already, man. March Madness is upon us. It's a fun time of the year for me. We'll talk a little hoops a little later on the show. Glad you could join us, Sharp and Shapiro. It is the Vegas Take. A lot to get to today. Of course, the big news we will be covering, and that is Elizabeth Warren is out of the race. I know all of you conservatives out there that are listening are really teary-eyed. It's a tearjerker. I understand. I know it. Elizabeth Warren will not be your president, at least not anytime soon. We'll get to that coming up in just a few minutes. I told you last week it was going to be between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and that's exactly what we have right now. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Mr. X, also known as the Hollywood Conservative, longtime producer out there in Hollywood and a Donald Trump supporter, will be joining us. We'll be asking him a little bit about the coronavirus in California, as it's now a state of emergency out there. We'll get his thoughts on Super Tuesday, that and much, much more. And there's a lot of stuff to get to with the coronavirus, including Matt Gaetz. That's right, DUI Matt, who is mocking the coronavirus. That's right. He's making light of a situation where people have died. We'll explain exactly what he did, and we'll go over that coming up here in just a little bit. We'll also try to figure out if Vice President Mike Pence has any new jerk circles in the last 24 hours. We'll cover that in a little bit. In hour number 2. Of course, it's Thursday, and that means it's the Dirty Dining weekly segment with Darcy Spears from 13 Action News. Trust me, folks, you're not going to want to miss this one. It's a good one, that's for sure. So a lot to get to, a lot to go over, and of course, we're going to preview UNLV basketball against Boise State today in the Mountain West Conference Tournament. Huge game, biggest game of the year. I will give you my predictions. It's taken me several days to try to figure out who's going to win this game. So we'll talk about that coming up in hour number 3 and preview it. And Mountain West Conference action actually in the men started yesterday. 11:30 a.m. is game number 1 today. San Diego State will be in action against Air Force. But let's start with the biggest, as I said, it's the biggest news certainly today, this morning, as Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts told her staff earlier today that she was dropping out of the presidential race, ending a run that was certainly defined, I think it's fair to say, by an avalanche of policy plans. And it was aimed to pull the Democratic Party more to the left. And I do think that it did appeal to enough voters to make her briefly a frontrunner. Let's remember, last fall, Elizabeth Warren was a frontrunner. And she had a couple good debates, but I think when it was all said and done, come on, we all knew who this was going to come down to. You know, a lot of people were talking Bloomberg. I never bought that. I always thought it would be, Biden would be one of the front runners and most likely Bernie Sanders. And that's exactly what we have right now. She made a call to her supporters, and on that phone call, she said, quote, "I know that what we set out, this was not the call you ever wanted to hear." She also went on to say, "It is not the call I ever wanted to make." I believe her. I certainly believe her. But again, I don't think she hurt her career. I thought she did a pretty good job in some of these debates, and she will continue to be on the debate stage in years to come. I have no doubt about that. But she also had some issues on the campaign trail, and this is one of the issues that I had, and it's funny and yet it's not funny, right? I think the biggest issue with Elizabeth Warren, in a way, was the same issues that Hillary Clinton had, and that is that they both have issues at times connecting with the people while on the campaign trail. As you know, Elizabeth Warren talks a lot about her history as being a special needs teacher. Well, she had an interaction on the campaign trail with a special needs student, and it really sounded like she brushed him off. I want you to hear this audio.
Fantastic. Hi. Hi, what's your name?
Ahmad Clarkson.
It's nice to meet you, Ahmad.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
What would you like to ask?
So, for my survivance, who am I about to be the best chosen one who has ever made?
Can you say it again?
Who am I about to be the chosen one?
Okay.
So, and listen, I'm not laughing at the student. I'm not laughing at the special needs student. I'm laughing at her response. You're a special needs teacher. You obviously have a child or a kid that struggles a little bit with the verbiage, which is totally understandable. And all Elizabeth Warren can say is, okay, and then she moves on to the next student. That's ridiculous. That's not how you deal with people, whether you're running for president of the United States, especially when you're a special needs student. You can't treat people like that. And that was a gaffe, so to speak, to take a page from the Joe Biden playbook. Not good. So this is what is really interesting to me, right? So Bernie Sanders this morning was interviewed, and he was asked, your thoughts on Elizabeth Warren? What are your thoughts on her dropping out? What do you think her future is? Would you ever have her in your administration? And Bernie Sanders responded with class, and he said that he respects her a great deal, and that he also said that he would consider talking to her about a spot in his administration. Very interesting to hear Bernie say that, because I want to play you an exchange that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders had, very testy exchange, after a January debate where Elizabeth Warren says that, Bernie Sanders accused her of lying on the national stage, which, by the way, he did. Have a listen to this.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now.
First of all, let me be clear on this. I believe Elizabeth Warren. She sounded very upset and angry. And I believe to an extent Bernie Sanders did call her a liar on national TV. And I believe her, not him. This was in regards to Bernie Sanders saying that a woman could never be president. I do believe Bernie probably said that. I'm sure he regrets it now. I think it was a stupid thing to say. And he did call her a liar. I believe Elizabeth Warren, and I am on her side on that. Do you think Elizabeth Warren would work for the Bernie Sanders administration? By the way, for the record, I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to win. I think Bernie Sanders was lying. I know it's a shocker, a politician lying, right or left. I know that's really shocking. And now we move to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And listen, I will be the first one to admit Joe Biden is not a fantastic candidate. He's not a great candidate. He's getting up there in age. A lot of gaffes. I think some of the Republicans that are attacking Joe Biden are unfair. They're going after him because of these gaffes. The man, again, is in his 70s, and there's a fine line between making a mistake and lying. Let me give you an example. On the debate stage last week, Joe Biden said that 150 million people died at the hands of gun violence. Obviously, that's not true, because that would be about half of the population in this country. That wasn't a lie, because it's not believable. Nobody believes that it was a gaffe. He made a mistake. He meant to say 150,000. Instead, he said 150 million. And by the way, 150,000, his point is still very well taken. Gun violence in this country is a huge issue. That is what you would call a gaffe. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. If you're running for president of the United States, you can't say things like that. That's a big mistake. Is it a lie? Does it raise to a... No. A lie would be much worse. But when you're talking about gun violence and you're talking about, gun control and red flag laws and all that stuff, you're just giving Republicans an opportunity to not talk about the actual issue, but talk about the mistake that you made in talking about the issue, if that makes sense. And that's what Republicans are doing. So, listen, he's had some gaffes on the campaign trail. This is an issue. This is a problem. Do you remember when Joe Biden confused his wife and sister on Super Tuesday? Have a listen to this.
They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing. By the way, this is my little sister, Valerie, and I'm Jill's husband. Oh, no, this is oh, you switched on me.
It's funny, but it's a little ridiculous, too. How do you confuse your sister with your wife? Well, maybe Donald Trump would do that. He confuses his daughter for his girlfriend, so I guess that does happen from time to time. I guess that's understandable, Joe. What about last week when he confused Chris Wallace with Chuck Todd when he was on Fox News? Have a listen to this.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thanks for your time. Please come back in less than 13 years, sir.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
Chris. I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck. I tell you what, man, these are back to back. Anyway.
No, it's
I don't
okay.
know how you do it early in the morning, too.
probably a mistake you shouldn't make, Mr. Vice President, when you're on national television. You probably shouldn't confuse who the host is asking you questions. That would probably bother me a little bit as well. Again, I don't think it was malicious. I know it wasn't malicious. He didn't do it on purpose. He's an older man. He's doing a lot of interviews and a lot of press. That one I'm going to have his back. That's a little bit more understandable. But this is tough, ladies and gentlemen. This next one is tough. This is tripping over the words. The vice president tripping over the words reciting the Declaration of Independence. Have a listen to this.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's certainly an issue. That's a problem. Again, it's the Declaration of Independence. You can't make those kind of mistakes. You just can't. Can't do it. But again, Republicans going after Joe Biden for some of these gaffes, when you keep yourself quiet and you don't talk about the president of the United States currently, Donald Trump, and his lies, not gaffes, then again, you have zero credibility. Yes, I do think this is an issue. Yes, I do think this is a problem. But again, there's a fine line between a gaffe and making a mistake and lying. And I think that is a distinction that everybody should understand. Now, then there's Brit Hume from Fox News, who on Tuesday, Super Tuesday, suggested that Joe Biden is losing it. And this is something you hear a lot from people on the right today. Have a listen to what Brit Hume said on Fox News.
Dana, as we've noted many times, though, there are two kinds of Biden gaffes. They're the kind he's always made.
Correct.
And maybe this one tonight was one of those. He's prone to that and always has been. It's no big deal. But more recently, we've seen cases in which he didn't know where he was. He didn't know.
Well, listen, Chuck over here has some
Chuck
things
over
to
here.
say
Exactly. Chuck.
I was waiting to see who was going to do it.
Thank you, Chuck.
And those are more disturbing because they suggest that he may be non-compass menace, or at least, or he's headed in that direction.
But it's like the stock market. We talk about things being baked into the market. It's like the investor already accepted that. They expect that. I sort of feel that that's the way it is with voters with Joe Biden.
But how many of the people who voted for him tonight would agree that he's senile or getting there?
Wow,
I think that's a little.
Yeah, I don't think they would think he was senile. I think that's a little harsh.
Okay, first of all, Brit Hume's an idiot. He really is. Just a complete idiot. He's not a doctor. He doesn't know if Joe Biden is senile. And by the way, if you want to call anybody senile or losing it, I would say it would be Brit Hume. Oh, I'm so glad you asked, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you why. Because he accidentally shared his window tab in an election tweet. He wanted to tweet about election odds because, he is just Mr. Go-To guy when it comes to gambling, Brit Hume. So he wanted to tweet up election odds, but after posting his tweet, everybody wasn't talking about his odds. They were talking about his apparent liking for sexy vixen vinyl. That's right. That's right. On his window tab, it said sexy vixen vinyl, which I find to be quite funny because I never thought of Brit Hume as that sort of guy, the bondage type in the bedroom. But apparently he is. Maybe he was buying something for his wife, or I don't know. So what does he decide to do? He decides to delete it and then retweet the odds without the sexy vixen vinyl tab on the internet, on social media. I have a serious problem with anybody on the right calling Joe Biden senile. First of all, you don't know it to be true. It's not factual. You're not a doctor. Okay, there's a lot of people out there on the left that like to speculate about Donald Trump's health and whether he's senile. I've never said that before. I don't think Donald Trump is senile. I think he's a nut. I think he's a sociopath. I wouldn't necessarily say he's senile. He's certainly narcissistic. You don't have to be a doctor to figure that one out. But for Brit Hume to go on Fox News, on national television, I think Joe Biden is senile. Just shut up, Brit. Nobody cares. Go buy your bondage stuff and whatever other sexual products you like. I'll give you a few stores to go to in Las Vegas if you're ever in town. Just go do that stuff. Go worry about your sexy vixen vinyl. And why don't you put something out in a tweet that everyone can see while you're looking up, drug paraphernalia? Maybe that'll be your next tweet. I mean, it's so ridiculous to me for anybody, and I mean anybody, especially a journalist, somebody that is on national television. I'm not going to say well-respected because I don't think of Brit Hume and the first thing I think of is, wow, what a well-respected journalist. No, he's a right-wing talking point puppet who apparently likes sexy vixen vinyl. who goes on Fox News and wants to speculate that Joe Biden is senile. You know what? I'm going to speculate. I'm going to speculate right now on the air. I'm going to do exactly what Brit Hume did. I think Brit Hume is impotent. I think Brit Hume is having struggles getting an erection. And I think the reason why Brit Hume goes on Sexy Vixen Vinyl is because he can't perform with his woman. That's what I think. I think Brit Hume can't get an erection. He can't get a hard-on. That's what I think. So he went on Sexy Vixen Vinyl. He said, honey, I got to try something. Those pills aren't working either. So he goes on Sexy Vixen Vinyl, and he buys something for his lovely wife, I'm sure, to help him in the bedroom because he's not pleasing her. That's what I think. Now, some of you out there, oh, Brian, that's inappropriate. Brian, that's wrong. Let me tell you something. It's no more wrong what I just said than what Brit Hume said on national television saying that Joe Biden is senile. Do you understand where I'm going here, folks? I'm not a doctor. Heck, there might be a chance that Brit Hume is impotent. It could be very possible, but he does seem like a stiff. So that would lead me to believe he doesn't have issues in that category. But no, in all seriousness, me saying that Brit Hume is impotent is the same type of irresponsibility. And by the way, I'm joking. Brit Hume was not joking when he said he believes Joe Biden is senile. It's the same thing. You're speculating with no evidence to back that up. Actually, I have some evidence. He went on Sexy Vixen Vinyl. Why would he do that? Maybe Brit Hume is just a really kinky guy. Or maybe he can't get an erection. Maybe he's impotent. I don't know. And then Brit Hume says, well, you know, Joe Biden, he's got these gaffes. Maybe he's senile. Same thing, ladies and gentlemen. Do you get where I'm going with this? Do you see the correlation here? It's irresponsible. I would never go on national television and say Donald Trump is senile. I would never go on national television and say that Brit Hume is impotent. I'll just do it on local radio. That's all. But it's irresponsible. It doesn't make sense. We have to stop these people from making comments like that. Listen, if somebody on the left went on CNN or MSNBC and said Donald Trump is senile, Donald Trump has heart issues, and they didn't have any evidence to back that up, I'd be saying the exact same thing. It's irresponsible journalism. And trust me, Brit Hume is not a personality. He's not a Sean Hannity. He's not a Laura Ingraham. He's not a Tucker Carlson. He's a guy who's supposed to be a journalist. He's supposed to be, share some opinions, but he's supposed to be respected. How do you respect a guy like that goes on national TV and says that the vice president, Joe Biden, is senile? It's just, it's absurd. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it's wrong. Look, there's no question in my mind that these gaffes that Joe Biden has made time and time again could hurt him. And I have serious issues and serious questions that if Joe Biden gets there on the debate stage, he's going to have more gaffes, and that is not going to help him in defeating Donald Trump. He needs to be better. He needs to be crystal clear with his thoughts. If you're talking about gun control, you can't say that half the country has died at the hands of gun violence. You can't say 150 million people when you meant to say 150,000. Why? More important than just the mistake and the gaffe is the fact that Republicans, you're giving them an opportunity not to talk about the actual issues at hand, but the mistakes that you made in talking about the issue. That's the problem. And Joe, he can't make mistakes like that. And listen, I don't know. It could be just his old age. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say he's senile because I have no evidence to back it up. What we do know is the man is in his 70s. He's an older guy. He's traveling every day. He's campaigning every day. He's doing interviews, multiple interviews, every single day. That's got to catch up to you. I'm 39 years old. I know if I had that type of schedule, it would affect me. I don't know if I would have those type of gaffes that he would have, but it certainly would affect me. I would believe, if I had a wife and a sister, I'd be able to differentiate between the two. But I'm 39 years old. I'm not in my 70s. I'm not Joe Biden. So this is going to, there's no question that this could affect the election. And yes, why am I talking so much about Joe Biden? Why am I not talking a lot about Bernie Sanders? Because I believe Joe Biden's going to win. And it's not because of the Democratic establishment. It's just simply because the majority of Americans that are Democrats or that will not support a Republican candidate are not going to vote for Bernie Sanders. He's got some support. There's no question about it. Bernie Sanders has a lot of support. But he does not have enough support, in my opinion, to defeat Joe Biden. Now, we will see what happens. I could be wrong. I think in the end, it's going to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And I think unless, for whatever reason, Donald Trump does not want to win in 2020, and I see no evidence to support the fact that he doesn't want to win, I do think Donald Trump will win and defeat Joe Biden. I do. And I could be wrong on that as well, but I think this is going to be a lot more interesting than the Hillary Clinton debates with Donald Trump. I think these debates, if it is Joe Biden and it is Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, I think these debates are going to be very interesting. However, don't we want more in society? Like, don't we want more in politics in general? Do we really want two men in their 70s yelling at each other? Are these the best candidates that we could come up with? Look, I have a lot more respect for Joe Biden than I do Donald Trump for a lot of different reasons. We don't have enough time to go into those reasons. But I think it would be best for both parties if we had some younger people there in office. We had some younger people running for president. It's just not a good look for this country. It's just not. You know, I don't want somebody president in their 80s. I don't think you should want that either. And I don't care how much energy supposedly Donald Trump has with his KFC food every day and his energy drinks. I don't care how much energy the guy has. I think we need somebody in office that's in his 40s. I've always felt that way. And to see these two guys, and again, it's speculation on my part. I'm giving you my opinion. I do think it'll be Joe Biden. But even if it's not Joe Biden, it's Bernie Sanders. Not like he's a young puppy either. The guy just had a heart attack. This is an issue that needs to be discussed in both parties. I think there should be age limits, not how young you are, but how old you are. I've always felt that way. And I will say this. You know, you have to be in your late 30s to run for office. How about cutting off an age limit? What do you guys think about that? I don't think you should be able to run for office if you're over the age of 70. That is my personal opinion. You know, we have these all these age limits on so many other things in society, but not for the president of the United States. What, you could be 85 years old and run for the presidency? That's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot tell me that someone's brain works the same at the age of 75 as it did 45. I'm sorry. It just absolutely makes no sense, and I think there needs to be age limits on both ends of the spectrum. How young you are, how old you are. I've always felt that way. Always. Always felt that way. I never will change my opinion on it. So obviously we're covering the breaking news that took place this morning. Elizabeth Warren is now out of the race. To no surprise, it is now between the two candidates, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. I am glad that all these candidates on the left have done the right thing, and they've stayed. You know, if Pete Buttigieg was still in, I do believe that Klobuchar probably would still be in, and I do believe that Elizabeth Warren would still be in the race. But I think Buttigieg did the right thing, and I think he set a good example, and I think everybody followed and acted appropriately as well. It is going to be Bernie or Joe, and I believe Joe Biden will be the nominee for the Democratic Party. I really truly believe that. So coming up next, we're going to be speaking with the Hollywood conservative, also known as Mr. X. He is a Donald Trump supporter. He is a longtime producer in Hollywood, and he's going to be talking to us about Super Tuesday. Also, his thoughts about the coronavirus. He lives in California. Gavin Newsom called it a state of emergency. A state of emergency for the coronavirus. Is it warranted? Is it real? We'll get his thoughts on that, and certainly much, much more here coming up in just a few minutes on the other side of the break. We'll take your calls a little bit later in the program at 702-257-5396. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take.